Rollin', rollin', rollin'. Keep them podcasts rollin'. All right, well, welcome back to the DrainGear podcast. We are joined here in our wonderful podcast studio by Mr. Taylor Martin, also known around here as Tater. How you doing, Tater?
Doing good. How about you?
Good. Glad to have you here in the podcast studio.
Yeah.
We're kind of getting the hang of this a little bit, so it's kind of a fun thing, but we've got a lot of topics to cover. Everybody keeps asking about all different types of things, so today is your day, and we get to talk about repairs and warranty type situations with the different products that we sell. Also, just general maintenance around this place is also falls in line with repairs and such. But so we're going to talk a little bit today about some of the things we do to help our customers get things up and running when they go down. Things like the Pecote millers and cameras and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
so
we got to keep those millers going in the field.
Yeah, that's like a big part of our repair center businesses. Yeah. Fixing millers, it seems like.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of millers come through here, a lot of Pecote millers. Yeah, over the years. So Taylor, tell us a little bit about you and how we met, if you can think back that far. It's been quite a while, and I'll help fill in the blanks. But
so I think at the time I was possibly working at Home Depot and cutting grass for doing landscaping. Mm-hmm. Jake reached out to me on Facebook, ended up cutting his grass. Funny thing is I cut his grass for about 2 years, never saw him, not once.
And why wasn't I cutting my own grass?
Because you were possibly traveling 90% of the time. I
was gone a lot. So that was back at the time I was working for LMK, actually, when we first started.
Yeah.
And then transitioned over to becoming part of the team and building Pecote here in the United States. So yeah, I was never home.
Never.
Yeah. You were probably at my house more than I was, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, never saw you.
Yeah. And all I knew is that when I would show up back home from a trip, my grass was always perfect. And we had a farm, so it was no small feat to mow the grass at the farm.
A large amount of grass.
A lot of fence line too.
Yeah.
Right. And I hate mowing and weed eating anyway, so it was not something that I really wanted to do. So especially with all that. But you always did a really good job. I remember that. So yeah.
So yeah, we kind of met that way. Then I wouldn't say parted ways, but didn't keep in touch for a couple of years, and then randomly got a message on Facebook.
Yeah. Somehow we were Facebook friends that whole time, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you had, I think I posted in one of those local pages, hey, is there anybody that could mow my grass? And you responded, and I guess we became Facebook friends, and that was it. But yeah, I never met you for 2 years.
Yeah.
And so as we started to grow Pecote and we needed more help, I needed somebody that could just kind of come in and be a helper. And lo and behold, you were you had moved on to working for another company, and you were specializing in, as it turns out, controls. And tell us a little bit about that, because I didn't know that at the time. I just was looking for a young, eager, ambitious guy that had something to work for, and I knew you had that because you were engaged, I think, even at the time. So
I think at that time I had just graduated college, and gotten a degree in industrial systems technology, and I was working at a pharmaceutical plant in Athens, Georgia, doing process piping, controls, wiring, a little bit of robotics, all kind of stuff like that, when you reached out to me.
Yeah.
So.
And that was a bonus for me, because I was just looking for a guy that I knew had good work ethic and something to work for. And it turns out you came at the perfect time with all of this experience. It was perfect, because I was oh man, he's got this systems, control type, background, and which is what we needed. The Pecote millers were just kind of coming out of the the KB boxes into the digital, you know, from analog to digital, and you really understood it. Like you looked at the millers the first time, you're like, this is so easy.
Right.
Like I can work on these things no problem.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of a bonus. But so naturally, you kind of became the repair guy because of your background, your good understanding of you know, electrical components and systems. So
yeah, it worked out pretty well. Just kind of snuck in and started working on millers, all kinds of equipment.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. So fast forward to today, you've been around here for a good while. You are a very integral part of the team. You are involved in everything: training, repairs, you know, support jobs. I mean, you've traveled all over the world now.
Yeah.
You have traveled, you know, overseas. You've been all over the place, and you continue to travel here domestically.
Yeah.
Even though it's a little bit miserable to do right now, you know, you're still out and about, getting around and going into the field and helping guys put liners in and understand how to do that, all the while still kind of keeping up on repairs and things here at the shop. So,
doing quite a few support jobs and training out in the field. So,
yeah,
it's been good.
So, you took your first flight on an airplane with me. We remember we flew up to Delaware.
Yeah.
We went to
First flight ever.
Yeah. So Taylor, you want to fly to Delaware, and we went to a factory that I won't name any names, but they basically make, what was it, like carbon fiber fins for missiles?
For missiles or rockets or something.
Yeah, it was crazy. So it was like kind of this insane venture of going up there, all for like a 1 foot long half-inch pipe. Remember that?
Yeah, it was going
insane into a
like a boiler or something.
It's like a furnace.
Yeah.
They like cooked the carbon fiber in there. But anyway, yeah. So you've come a long way, and you know, we're obviously love having you on the team. Lots of fun. You're extremely helpful to have around. Great part of the team. But let's talk a little bit about what you've gotten set up over the years. We've kind of went from, you know, we used to lay everything out on the floor in the middle of the shop. Remember, we didn't really have, you know, we didn't even have a workbench. We had nothing. It was like throw everything out on the floor and fix a miller right there in the middle of the shop floor.
Right.
And now we've kind of got a little dedicated space for you with everything set up to be able to work on millers. So tell us a little bit about the progression of kind of coming from really basic through to where we are today, and maybe even where we're going to be going.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you said, when I first came in, we were throwing millers down on the floor to work on them. There was a little transition there. We got the repair center kind of set up, put some tables in there. Then we started working on machines in there, still on the floor though.
Yeah.
So then we kind of installed the lift table and a few other things to help us out to, so to say, save our backs from moving those machines around so much. But yeah, I mean, that's really been a big help setting up that repair center, because we're able to better serve our customers and have a lot faster turnaround time on our machines.
And typically we can get a piece of equipment in and turned around pretty quick, as long as we've got the parts and there isn't something wildly wrong. I would say the biggest hiccup, and you know, maybe our listening audience can take this to heart, is the biggest hiccup and the biggest attribute to taking more time than it needs to is the communication side. You know, we've got a really good process for you know, filling out a form on your phone. It's a really simple form that you can get. It's a link on your phone. You can take pictures of the machine, the serial numbers. You know, if there's a issue with the machine, you can kind of take a picture or video and add it to this app, and then it comes to us, and we have all the information that we need to be able to troubleshoot it and make a good repair. The downfall is when we get to that point, we've got everything figured out, and what needs to be done is the communication back and forth, just saying, hey, we've figured out what's wrong with your miller. Here's what's wrong. Either it's under warranty or it's not. We quickly need that information back from them or an authorization to proceed. But if we can get all that done, we can turn a miller around.
Yeah, I mean,
is it fair to say
two.
like a day?
Yeah.
Really, if we have the parts and it's something simple, we could switch out a box or you know, fix a clutch or whatever on a Mini, you know, in pretty much a day.
Yeah, most of that stuff we can switch out in a day. It's just like you said, the communication is key. So
right. The other thing too is that on top of fixing the millers, we work on cameras as well. So we do quite a bit of camera repair in our facility.
Right.
Yeah, so you've done quite a few reterms, and you're pretty good with the soldering tools and that sort of thing.
Yeah. We're progressively getting better and getting a better setup for reterms.
It's your young eyes, Taylor.
My young eyes.
Your young eyes. I couldn't even see to solder some of those little wires that you.
Some of them are tiny.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty crazy little repairs that you've done in there. Speaking of that, I see that we've got a few of these little tools here in the background. Tell us about what some of these things are.
Yeah, I mean, the far left, that's just an electrical meter that we use to test really any kind of electrical component.
Right.
We can test camera cables with those. We can test millers with those. The little octopus looking component in the middle there, that is called a helping hands.
Mm-hmm.
That's made to hold things while you solder. So a lot of times when we're doing reterms, we'll stick a board in there to solder it. It's got a little magnifying glass and a light on it also. So that helps out quite a bit, so I don't have to rally the troops to hold
Have
things
everybody,
for me.
5 people in there holding things while you're trying to solder. And
5 people and 5 pairs of tweezers.
It's a very simple little tool, I'll be honest. We got it on Amazon, but this thing has been a lifesaver.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it multiple times in the repair center with all sorts of little wires and plugs and things hooked to it. So
yeah, that saves quite a bit of time and effort. And then on the far right there, we have a tachometer. That's one thing that we'll test the speed of the millers with. Just to ensure that they are spinning true to speed. Yeah. So that's one thing when we get a miller in that the complaint is the shaft isn't turning fast enough. We'll test it just to ensure that it is.
And we've done so many different repairs on millers over the years, all the different millers, and there's so much to these things to understand how to keep them well maintained.
Oh, yeah.
What would be the number one tip if you said, "Hey, Pacote user, what's one really good tip that you would give a guy?"
Probably the best tip would be a good power source.
Yeah.
More times than not, that's the issue we see. Even with the new Super Midis, they're a 15 amp outlet, but a lot of guys plug them into GFIs, or it may be not on intentional, but they may plug them into a GFI circuit that the breaker's GFI'd. So then, that's going to create an issue. And all they know is that my miller's not working and, it needs to be. So we try to work through that with guys.
Sometimes they'll show up here and it's almost like there's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
And we find out and discover that they've been plugging it into an inadequate power source.
Right.
Whether it's overpowered or underpowered, it can create a problem. Talk a little bit about the control boxes on the millers themselves. A lot of guys think that in some places it's required, especially in factories, you've got to plug industrial equipment into a GFI.
Right.
What happens when you do that with a Pacote miller that's got a control box on it?
The new digital control boxes essentially have a GFI in them.
Okay.
What they do is they regulate the amperage that they're running, and that's all a GFI does. So once the GFI gets over a certain amperage, it's going to trip.
Right.
The problem is if you hook 2 GFIs together, they kind of backfeed off of each other and they can't work properly.
Right.
So you'll end up tripping one of them, whether it's in that case the control box or the GFI outlet or breaker one.
Right.
You'll see quite a bit of issues with that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we try to work through that with the guys on the phone before it gets here. But
right. Yeah, we do as much troubleshooting over the phone as we can, because sometimes it's really simple. And if a guy has a little bit of basic knowledge, we absolutely have no problem helping to say, hey, if you have a really simple, electrical meter, hook it up to these wires, or sometimes it's a loose wire in a foot pedal. Maybe it kind of got banged around when it was getting loaded up and a guy didn't realize that something was jarred loose inside the foot pedal. So we have a lot of excited guys that call and say, hey, this thing's not working, and then they're excited to find out it's something really simple that they can fix themselves, because a lot of times they're in the middle of a job.
Right.
Yeah. It's like the number one thing. I mean, as soon as you find out, it's like never at a good time.
Oh, yeah.
It's never like, oh, well, it's the end of the day, my miller's not working. I should probably,
I'm in the shop playing around. It's always
that's never what it is.
I have a hospital shut down and I need it.
Right. Worst case scenario. Right. Cutting grout out of a sewer in a hospital.
Right.
Whatever, a school. So yeah, it's, we understand downtime. I mean, we get that. This is an urgency business, and we 100% know that. And so we're going to do everything we can, of course, to help, not only from the troubleshooting standpoint. If we can't do it over the phone, we will help to arrange shipping. We'll help to get it in here as quickly and cheaply as possible and get it right back out the door as quickly as possible, so guys don't really experience a whole lot of downtime.
Yeah.
So, and we do keep a pretty good stock of parts for the millers. So the usual suspects, right? The slip rings, the control boxes, and little things like that.
Yeah, we typically keep quite a bit of the electrical components on stock, on hand, because, even if the machine's not here, a lot of times guys will, say, hey, send me an e-stop. It's 2 wires. You can wire it in pretty quickly yourself, or, something simple like that, or the foot pedal cable. That's a good example.
Yeah.
That's something that's pretty easy fix. If a guy has a little understanding of electrical systems, then it won't have an issue with it.
Yeah. So millers are a big thing that we fix here. A lot of Pacote millers and parts. We talked about cameras, different variations of cameras. We're going to be servicing more cameras and offering more services in regards to repairs on different cameras. So there's going to be some more news about that coming soon. But the other thing that we do a lot of is rebuilding Packers. And a lot of people don't realize that that's a big part of what we do here, and a really nice part of our business, in fact, that is helpful to the end user, is that our Packers for our patching process are rebuildable. And most Packers, at least to my knowledge, are not necessarily easily rebuildable. So it's kind of a nice feature about our Packers. But we have all those parts in stock as well.
Yeah, we keep all the Packer parts in stock. Really, they are, for the most part, rebuildable. The only time that they aren't is, in the core of that Packer, there's a retention strap there. So if that retention strap gets damaged, then that's kind of a new Packer situation. But, like I said, most of the time they are rebuildable. If they get in a nasty pipe or not using containment properly and they burst, then typically they can send them back. We would rebuild them and ship them right back to them.
Yeah. Some other things would include maintenance on generators, maintenance on air compressors. We do have, we sell the Kaiser air compressors. We do have, filter kits and oil and all those sorts of things available here. So for our Kaiser users, we do have, service kits available here. We could also service them here for you.
Yeah.
If you have the luxury of being local enough, you can stop by and we can do things like that. But there's always some sort of maintenance happening around here, whether it's a tank that's got a loose wheel, or, it's like there's always something. And then just the building in general, there's always some sort of little maintenance thing going on. But, the repairs that we do here are taken very seriously. We know it's critical that guys get their stuff fixed and back out into the field. And so, we try and do that to the best of our ability as much as possible. So
yeah, most of these guys need their stuff back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So if you guys have repairs that need to be done, especially on millers, that seems to be one of our number one things that we work on the most is the Pacote millers. If you guys need service on your Pacote millers, there's no better team to work on them than the guys who were part of the Pacote team for many, many years. We spent a lot of time in Finland and learning from the absolute best and being part of the team at Pacote. So when it comes to repairs, we know these things really well. We understand how they act. Some of them can be a little finicky, and we do try and test them as thoroughly as possible. Of course, we don't have a live sewer to go, cut tree roots on with every single machine that we repair in here, but we try and simulate some different things. We'll add torque to the machines, and we'll lubricate cables and different things like that. But one of the big parts that we do a lot of replacement on is shaft and casing.
Yeah.
What tips or tricks would you have on the shaft and casing as it pertains to the machine and ensuring better performance and longevity with the machine?
I would say, once a year, for sure, try to pull that cable off, pull it out of the casing, wash the casing out with, soap and water, wipe the cable down, and then re-oil that cable as you put it back in that casing. And then, you don't have to do that really more than once a year. If you need to add a little bit of oil, you can just pull the sleeve bearing off the end, add a little bit right in the end of the cable, run that machine, and it'll kind of pull that oil down through the cable. So, really with the cable, it's just maintaining them, oiling them, and then also kind of inspection. When you go to put a tool on, make sure that the end of that cable is in good condition, because that's how most guys end up losing tools, is if that cable is compromised at the end, then you have issues.
Right. And sometimes it'll give you false signals, where that entire cable is it's got so much grit and buildup inside that whole case. And if you've got a 100-foot long cable, that's a lot of force that's unnecessary, and it's robbing your machine of overall power. So when the performance isn't there while you're root cutting or grinding, doing reinstatements, and it seems like your machine's not as powerful as it should be, it's not necessarily a power or control box issue.
Right.
It's sometimes just the cable.
Yeah, it could just be the cable.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, if you have a lot of, specifically, we see it a lot from the coast, sand. If you have a lot of sand in the cable, it can rob that machine of power.
Have we not seen literally beach sand come in on some of these machines? Like from Florida, you're like, oh, there's like a cup of sand sitting in the center of this
cleaning out the storm drains on the beach.
Right, yeah, like insane amount of sand.
Right.
And you turn the machine on, it's just like you can hear the grit inside that casing. Not good.
So, that's a lot of friction on that machine that's not necessary.
And it'll steal the overall power of that machine away from the unit. So yeah. So lots of things to take into consideration, but we kind of cover the spectrum on the repairs, from cameras to millers and then the packers. I suppose there'll be more things in the future that we offer, but at the moment that's the big ones. Yeah. The Ferret too is something that I should mention. You've got really good experience with that, and you have repaired ferrets quite a bit. So that's another thing that we do repair.
Done a few repairs on
just about everything we sell here, we have some level of ability to repair it. Almost everything. We're either going to have a replacement part or we can repair it.
Right, yeah.
So, cool. Yep. Well, I think that's it, Taylor. Just wanted to, spend a little time with you talking about repairs. We sure appreciate everything you do around here, and love having you be a part of the team. If you guys want to tap into Taylor's expertise, whether it's in the field training, which he's extremely good at, or if you need help troubleshooting a machine or piece of equipment, let us know. Taylor's happy to get involved, and we can send you the form that you'll need to fill out to make sure that we get all the right information and get that thing in and out of here as quickly as possible. So awesome. Well, thanks, Taylor. Appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And that's it. We'll have another podcast coming at you soon, and we appreciate you guys tuning in and taking the time to watch and listen. And until next time, talk to you soon.